So, quick disclaimer, in case you are from the future and you're looking for information regarding 3.20, like manifestos, patch notes, things like that, check the description or a pinned comment. There you're going to find what you're looking for. We are still in 3.19 right now, approaching 3.20. So this is going to be a guide for my Poison Seismic Saboteur from last league. My absolute favorite build so far in the entire game. It's so smooth. I took it all the way to the end game. It's super cheap. It's super easy, to be fair. If you look at the tree, there is basically nothing complicated there. It's a standard tree. There's no clusters, no timeless jewels, nothing crazy. Just normal tree points, a single unique jewel, 2 in the beginning. In terms of gear, there's cheap uniques. Even this one is very cheap comparatively. Nothing that the market will make weird. There's another one here. We have a bit of a fancy chest there, but I'm gonna get you there. And I really hope that this guide will get you all the way from like starting the league, step-by-step leveling, step-by-step the phases, different ones, getting you from swapping your skills, upgrading your gear, how do we get into this unique setup, all the way without any like downtime, but the build doesn't work. There's nothing really enabling there. It essentially works from the very, very beginning. It just gets really better over time, and I'm pretty sure I can almost guarantee that unless GGG does something really weird, this is gonna get you in 3.20 from the very start to gear like this without any issues, to completing your entire atlas, like all these little things here, all the ones here, all the invitations, and for me last league as well, except for the super grindy ones, all the challenges done. I'm super confident on that. So gameplay first. Overall agenda, what we're gonna do. I'm gonna show you some gameplay. I'm gonna pitch you the build. I'm gonna tell you what's weird maybe about the build, what might turn you off, and then if you're still with me, I'm happy to go over the build, like explain the endgame version, how it works. And if you're then still with me and actually want to play it, probably I'm gonna go over the entire PoB with you, go over every single phase of it. So yeah, give you some additional tips. The PoB itself, obviously in the description, so that's your first point where you can leave the video. If you want to right now, just grab the PoB. There's like 1 billion trees in there. There's 1 billion skill sets in there. There's like item sets, and there's a ton of nodes. So you can just, yeah, if you've experienced enough, just pick the PoB. It's probably everything's in there. Other than that, let's look at some gameplay. First of all, we're going to do a map, pretty standard map. It's like a mesa. There's nothing crazy on it, I think, but also not too easy. And in terms of tree, we're going to have a look at some expedition, which the build is cool at. And we're going to look at some scary Arc Nemesis essences in case we find some. Nothing else is like on the tree here. So we're going to go in there. We're going to put guarantee an expedition. And I think we can get more essences with this. So itself, it's Seismic Trap and Exsanguinate. We are poison based. We have this weird malevolence thing with which we can turn on for a certain amount of time. We have some explosions. Let's have a look here. Let's close those because it's annoying. Overall, it's super tanky. As you can see, you can just walk in these things here and nothing really hurts you. Perfect build for Arc Nemesis. Just throw your normal traps. Let's look for some content, to be fair. So most things just die. If it's like a bigger blue pack, maybe I sometimes throw like a seismic trap. Other than that, I'm just throwing my Exsanguinate. We have a tiny essence here. We can throw some traps. We can activate our malevolence and then maybe even our focus thing, so it really dies. And then it kind of dies. We can also stand in these weird things here. They don't really hurt. Very comfy build. That's what I mean with that. And that's why I enjoy this build so much. You can just play with it. So let's look for some more content so we can get on with the actual guide part. You can also basically not have this obnoxious MTX. You can kind of turn it off if you want to. There's another essence there. It's a small one. It's not this one. This is also a small one. Let's look for the expedition, because this might be a bit more interesting for people. Let's not pick up cheaty shrines, even though they really help, to be fair, if you pick them up. Typically stuff dies behind us. You just have to trust me that actually stuff is dying. Where's the expedition? Oh, here it is. Okay. Let's clean up real quick. And yeah, it's just more or less randomly place stuff. For expedition, obviously don't take things that say immune to chaos damage. That's pretty much the only thing that hurts us. Overall, the build has no issues with map mods as long as you can recover energy stuff and recover life and regenerate life, and you don't make the cooldown of your seismic trap worse. That's bad. No reflect issues or anything. So for this stuff, you kind of follow the chain. You see where the next explosion is. If there's an explosion, you throw 1 or 2 of your seismic traps. Just remember you have a cooldown, so maybe 1 is enough. Here will be the next explosion, so I throw 1 trap, throw a few exsanguinates. Everything kind of follows me. I have a lot of traps right now, so we can throw a few more on the last explosion. Go a bit back, see if something survived, like a yellow dude survived, so we can press maybe our power up button. You know, you don't have to press this always. It's more of a bossing thing in the endgame version, to be fair. For some reason, this guy is not dying. What does he have? Nothing. Okay, he's dead. Cool. You can also do the boss, even though this is a quite annoying boss because he sometimes runs away. So you see a bossing thing. So he drops down, we drop our traps, press our 2 buff things, and then, yeah, essentially wait until he dies. You can also wither him. It probably also makes sense to get wither on him, and then he's dead as well. So that's kind of the mapping experience. It's pretty much how it goes. Very relaxing, very good for farming. This more static content. That's, yeah, what the skill is good for. So we're gonna have a look at something different. It's gonna be an Elder. Obviously, Elder is not a hard boss or anything. It's not about that, but it's just a boss that a lot of people have done and probably have an idea like how does it feel to kill it with other builds. And I'm also gonna do a gem swap. So this is not necessary for Elder, but I would do this for like Mavens, Uber Elders, like bigger things. But I just want you to see like how does it feel if we would do a bit of a bigger boss. Ideally, you wouldn't like recolor your boots. Ideally, you would have like a second pair of boots or just get a white socket, like get a 4 green thing, get a white socket on it, and then you can just swap out the gems, and that's easier. In our case, we can't, so we're gonna go for, like here in this case, 3 socket, 4 socket, we missed, do it again, interesting, we're still missing, perfect, and then we're gonna 4-link this whole thing, meaning we have a different setup. In this case, since exsanguinate, we're gonna use blade trap with withering touch and some other stuff, so we have more traps. It's basically just so we get more wither stacks on bosses as well. So we can use blade trap. We need to use a different weapon because wands don't work, and this extra like explodey stuff doesn't help for bosses either. So we just get 3 more levels on our seismic trap, which is cool. So this is kind of the setup. What I also do is I remove withering step because it just blocks. I already have wither with blade trap, so yeah, it just blocks worst case my flame dash. I don't want that, so we remove this. We're just gonna go into an Elder. I'm just gonna do the first phase, don't worry, I'm not gonna do the entire Elder. But so you get like an idea how bosses might feel, how the gameplay might be. So in this case, there's somewhere the Elder dude. We can just throw our traps on him, throw a few more, activate our buffs, and then yeah, we just kind of stand there, and then he dies. So he will go into his weird phase here, then he will degen us, which is bad for us. We press our flask. And then, yeah, he's already in the next phase. So this is basically how it works, right? I mean, I'm not going to do the phase, but you throw your blade traps at things, so they if they would explode, yeah, they stack things, and then you throw your seismic traps. So I think I can't get out of here, right? Perfect. So this is essentially the build, how it plays. I hope that was sufficient for gameplay. In terms of why I think you should play this build, let me pitch it to you. So it has amazing leveling with what's it called? Spectral Helix, which is really cool, super quick. You can relatively easily then transition into Poison Seismic Trap. You don't need any uniques or whatever things for that to begin with. You can slowly build up all your all your standard, like just rare gear. The only thing we just get early is Obliteration Wand. And from there, you don't even need spell suppression. We early on take spell suppression just with like nodes, so you get 100% from tree, makes gearing so much easier. You have so much space just for resistance, cheap gear, super fine. Then we slowly transition while we can already farm like essences and how's it called, expedition stuff, while not even having swapped to the actual build. Or to the actual unique versions. You can slowly establish basically good gear, still without spell suppression. Then you swap into these unique things here. Then you fix spell suppression onto your gear to move the points, especially these ones here, somewhere else. Absolutely cool, and it leads into even being able to craft a chest like this very, very easily, which is not necessary, but it's kind of nice to do. It feels amazing because it's poison. We like poison. You just hit stuff, it will die. There's no reflect. There is nothing weird basically in the game. All this Arc Nemesis stuff people struggled so much with basically didn't affect me at all, because there's no mod that is really dangerous to this entire build. It's super tanky. I feel like it has, if you look at the defenses, it has a bunch of armors. I don't have any flask on. It already has a bunch of armor. It has a bunch of evasion rating. We have overcapped resistances. We have fully capped chaos resistance, which a lot of that, even early on, you get already positive chaos resistance just from the tree. You get later on, especially when you need it in progression, you get a lot of life nodes here, overcapping. Just like, in my opinion, super cool build. It's capable of basically doing everything, which brings me to the point where it's the limit of the build, right? I think it's essentially you can complete everything on your own. The point is, what I found difficult is Maven. You might struggle a bit with Maven, especially I do, because I'm mechanically really challenged in this game, so I'm not that good. She moves around a lot, has a small hitbox, there's a lot of degens. So that's a bit of a difficult boss. The Uber bosses, the Uber versions, definitely doable, 100%. So enough damage, it's all there. Just a skill issue, but you probably need to be quite good to do that. So cut out the expectation of doing Uber bosses. You might struggle a bit on Maven. And the Feared, I only did white, basically. However, what you can do is, and what I did, and I have videos on it, you can check that out, is I farmed Height of Hubris with like this release all bosses at the same time. So basically fully buffed Elder and Shaper Guardian invitations. You can absolutely do them. Maybe not 100% buffless, but you can absolutely farm them, and you get like, and roll them quite dangerously, get like 0.8 of a Maven's Wits out of it. So that's basically the limitation. Also like Simulacrum 30 you won't do. You will probably not do 100% Delhi super juiced crazy maps. It's more regarding normal mapping. It's a league starter build basically. So that's essentially, I would say, yeah, why I like the build, especially on smoothness and tankiness. And there are some issues with it. As I said, degens are definitely a weak point of the build, especially since you don't have much recovery outside of killing stuff. Like killing stuff and stuff activating your traps gives you a shit ton of recovery. But if you don't have that, Cirrus, for example, if he flies around and you get a bit close to these storms, like there's outside of your blast, there's no recovery. You essentially, yeah, can be really annoying. While you're fighting, that's fine. While you're mapping, there's no issue. But some boss fights are a bit more difficult. So if you're still with me and still interested, then let's have a look at how the build essentially works in an endgame version, and I think we will go to PoB for that. So this is the entire PoB I already showed. There's like a lot of different things here. This would be like an endgame tree, like a very endgame tree that's taking a lot of extra life nodes already. So I think this was like a 96, 97 version with a Lyra actually active. And yeah, if you're not that high, you just lose a bit of life. That's fine. Where to start, basically. Tree. Maybe tree is not that bad. Maybe skills is not that bad. Let's do that. So Also phase 4 in this thing. This is just some awakened gems that I actually have right now, just not that leveled up. You don't need any awakened gems. Don't worry. Can just use the normal version. So, but we have a main setup, Seismic Trap, with poison and skill effect related, or trap related as well, with advanced trap cooldown related support gems there. Nothing fancy. If you want later, get awakened gems. If you want later, get an anomalous, like alternate quality, or just don't. That's fine. That's our main ability for killing big stuff. Exsanguinate is our clear ability, still poison based, so we're doing poison damage, not like physical damage, not physical degens, poison stuff. This is mostly having chain and having cluster traps, so a lot of these and chaining, and we need trap to make Exsanguinate into an actual trap, since we don't want to use Deerstalker this later on. As I said earlier, this would be like a bossing setup. You can swap this out on really difficult bosses, or really high-end bosses, or I would still do it for Elder and something in cases where you're chaining Elders. Yeah, then you can swap it out. It's probably worth it. Other than that, normal defense, we have a Val Molten Shell, we have Defiance Banner, it's skipped towards auras, we have some Skitter bots, Grace, Determination, obviously with Herald of Agony, because why not? Helps us, gives us a bunch of more damage with poison, is cool. We have Flame Dash, with faster attacks, and also Shield Charge. Shield Charge for normal moving, Flame Dash just to get over stuff, or to have instant movement. Withering Stab is just there to apply Wither to our targets. So you get like just like 6 Wither stacks, I think. Does it say 6? Yes. On targets. Super fancy. Auras we already did. We have Malevolence then in this version already, but with Inspiration and Divine Blessing. So you need to press it, and then it lasts for a bit, and then in 9 seconds it says here. Maybe it's a bit longer with other modifiers, but it lasts for a bit, and then you have to press it again. During mapping, you can press it, you can press it not, maybe if you find a big ray or something. We have the Spare as well in a Curse on Hit Ring, and we have another spell, which is basically in here. It's not the Feast of Flesh, what I mean. Where is it? Energy reach. Oh, increased duration. It's like in the very last row. Increased duration of ailments you inflict while focused, so you can get into this focus state and apply or deal way more damage, because the duration of your poison is increased so much. In terms of damage and things we clicked, if we would click the flasks, we get a bunch more defense. In this case, like if you look at the defense, we're going to look over this in a second, but in the configuration there really shouldn't be anything evil ticked. But to see like actual bigger damage is if we say we wither the enemy. It says 6 stacks, so we could go 6 stacks of wither. The interesting part here is total damage per poison here. It's like how much damage per poison, because poison stacks infinitely. So I think that's a good measurement to have an idea. So if you apply 6 wither stacks, already goes up by 100k. So that's a lot. If we then decide to press our focus button while applying these poisons, we have basically doubled our damage, more or less, since without this, right? So it's double, it's double, roughly double the damage. So if we use Blade Trap, I kind of forgot how high Withered stacks, but here it says 15 times. So assuming with the Blade Traps, there's so many of them, we probably get 15 Withered stacks. That's already as much damage as with 6 stacks and focused. And if we now focused, so we basically go almost like 800,000 damage per poison we apply. So per little explosion of Seismic Trap that hits the enemy, he's gonna take this amount of damage. So this is like just to keep in mind, but I don't like putting it's conditional basically. So I don't want it to have that as a base damage. So yeah, that's roughly how the damage part works. If we look at defenses, essentially, did I turn on the flasks again? Yeah, as with flasks, which is also somewhat conditional, we can also have a look without flasks. We already have like a huge amount of max hits. We have a huge amount of chaos max hit, basically, and pretty fine with degens. We are overcapped on resistance, which is mostly from this area here, which I really think it helps a lot. I mean, other than that, the tree is kind of uninteresting, I would say. I think that's just the main reason we go down there, to get max res and a bunch of, here's more max res here, we get a bunch of life here. Alternative ways are down here. There's like the anointment we have, for example. It's for one cool for chance to poison, and on the other hand, nice for damage. Over time multiplier, it's also a really cheap anointment. So there's other ways to go down here. And yeah, other than that, it's like a standard trapper poison tree. If you have a look at it, I don't think there's too much to explain here. In terms of ascendancy, also super standard. We get a super strong blind. We get additional immunity with ignite and shock from this year, and a lot of recovery. If stuff gets detonated, is what I meant earlier. Like, your recovery kind of depends on stuff exploding and killing stuff, and actually stuff triggering your traps. You get perfect crime and obviously chain reaction. So pretty standard here as well. In terms of Pantheon, Soul of the Brine King, really cool. You cannot be frozen. And we're gonna have a look at the items in a second. And I like Rislata because of the flask charges gained every few seconds. I think that's really helpful. In the actual build you just saw, did swap away from Allura at some point for the guide here for you guys. I'm definitely gonna leave it at helping Allura, because it makes resistance so much easier. So really worth it, I think. Yeah, that's the tree, basically. Endgame items, super cheap wand. Nothing special with this one. Can get corruption later if you really want to. Leper's Arm. Let's talk about the helmet first. It's Devouring Diadem. Not super cheap on day one, sure, but gets somewhat cheap over time, and also you can just farm it yourself. It's not like a super rare drop. It comes from Katarina. You can just farm Katarinas. Other people will farm Katarinas. So I don't see a world without any excessive changes where this gets like super crazy expensive. It just won't. So yeah, why we have this, it's Eldritch Battery. What Eldritch Battery does is all your energy shield will protect your mana instead. That means whenever you use skills that would normally use mana, they use an energy shield first. So yeah, basically you use energy shield for skills, and you can reserve all your mana. So that's the basic idea. You just need some energy shield. So this thing provides you a bit of it. And the other thing is you can unveil, like these here uniques that come veiled, and you need to unveil them. And one of the mods, and that's really the mod you want, is 140% increased duration of ailments while focused. Super strong mod. Definitely make sure if you get the item, please make sure you get one with this mod. Yeah, if you only can buy one or something, don't buy a veiled one. Just make sure it really has this mod, because I don't think it's guaranteed. Without it, still works, but you miss out on the focus, and that's terrible. Other thing is, gives you obviously a level of socketed gems, that's cool, and 25% increased reservation efficiency that allows for an additional aura, more or less. Really cool, perfect helmet for the build. I combined it with Leper's Arm, that's a shield. The interesting part of this shield, like the really interesting part, is that it has, for one, it has energy shield, which is really helpful, because yeah, you need energy shield somewhere. Easy to get here. On top of it, it has a bunch of evasion, it has life, and increased duration of ailments. So in my opinion, this fits the build perfectly, and it makes the entire gearing process so much simpler. We are not in a min-maxed version here, and for like this level of little investment, just fixing all issues with it is perfectly fine. So this combination, these two, perfectly cool. Last unique is Ming's Heart. Also really fits the build. I think you gain an additional 60% of physical damage as extra chaos, which is really cool. You get a ton of chaos resistance. So that almost single-handedly solves all chaos resistant needs. On the other hand, obviously, yeah, it reduces your maximum energy shield and reduces your maximum life. Both, in my opinion, is not a big deal. In terms of your softcore, if you would be hardcore, you would obviously not use this ring. You would just have less damage, less chaos resistance, or get it differently. But in softcore trade, perfect thing. Give up a bit of life, give up a bit of energy shield, which is only your mana then now anyway. And with these two, you already have enough. And you get a shit ton of damage, you get a shit ton of chaos resistance. Really cool. other gear. This one looks scary, I know, but it's a super endgame. I have a video on how to craft it. This is like the item you can strive for if you want to, and the guide is gonna guide you all the way to crafting this item. It's not even that expensive to craft. Super endgame, basically one of the last items you get. Super cool chest, uses a lot of weight modifiers and crafting with that, but other than that it's a purely defensive chest. It doesn't do anything else, not an explodey chest. Also an interesting part about the build overall, would say it uses a lot of Searing Exarch and Eater of Vault items, just because I wanted it so. I think they are easier to get and craft and do than other influenced items, so yeah, I just really like them. Your gloves, they're not too special either. They're basically life, spell suppression, and double resist in the very endgame version. Nothing crazy, very obtainable. Boots, at the same time, it's basically life, triple resist in this case, and a crafted movement speed. Obviously, you could get more movement speed otherwise, but I really like the cannot be chilled part. And I feel like the build is quick enough with this. Also, this is the endgame item. Lapis Amulet. Basically a stat stick. It has int and life, which is cool, and then damage over time multiplier. Idea with this is for one, fixing your intelligence needs, and on the other hand, obviously if you can get some damage over time multiplier, it's cool. And with Kalandra there was some ideas to, double them, get 2 more bad mods, and then get them minus and get these 3 plus or something like that. Yeah, just basic amulet. Not unaffordable. Here's a ring, which the main part of this ring is being a curse enemies with despair on hit ring, with as much effect as you can get. Life is nice on it. Being Amethyst ring for more chaos rose is nice. The minimum endurance craft is nice in the end game. The core is being a curse on hit ring. That's the main purpose of this whole thing. For that, it does need to be a hunter item. In terms of belt, you can basically use any belt. At the very end of this guide stuff, you don't really need stats anymore. You just need int. So it can be a leather belt. Also, life resists. That's the end game build. Other stuff is cool, not required. Flasks, it's really cool. Get the ones that have obviously instant flask with bleed. Get a phasing flask. I really like having gain 3 charges when you hit by an enemy on every single flask. Makes life so much easier. And also put the thing on there so they're automated, so they're activated all the time. Just do that, and then get a granite, a silver, a quicksilver. Get good flasks, like really well rolled flasks. Helps out a ton. Late game jewels. Get something with like % increased life and any dot-based mod, damage over time, poison damage, something like that. And ideally get one with corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. Any jewel that has that is perfectly worth it. Saves you on point in the tree. And it's good to have, yeah. Still using a code Shrapnel because it just gives you so much poison chance for free, for nothing, so you don't need to deal with other sources of that. It gives you also a bit of damage, yeah. So good too. So overall, I would say that's the build. I don't think I have anything more special about this build. That's essentially what it is. So if you're still here and didn't leave, it means you probably maybe want to level this build. So I'm just gonna ramble you through how to do that, like step by step. Hopefully I can make some notes where stuff is, but I'm just you can read this entire thing. I'm gonna give you examples for the different phases. Let's do that. So we start in leveling. Just make sure on how to use this, obviously. If you're choosing something under leveling here, right, under leveling divider, make sure you actually swap everything else also to the appropriate thing so everything works. So how do you level this? Overall, you're gonna mule, obviously, Splitting Steel from a duelist and chance to beat as well. So you're gonna have Splitting Steel until level 12. Then we're roughly level 12 somewhere in this neighborhood, because you're gonna kill the pirate, and from the pirate on, we're gonna use Spectral Helix with claws, and we're gonna use that all the way till the end of the entire campaign. And then somewhere there we might be swapping to traps, or just a bit before that, but overall leveling is claws and leveling is Spectral Helix. If you don't like that, if you want to level differently, feel free, do whatever you want. this is basically the tree roughly before we swap to traps. This is where we want to end up. How you get there doesn't really matter. You can also do something completely different and spend a lot of regrets and do, there's no requirement to level like this. But I think this is very, very, very effective to do. So I have some trees here. I'm just gonna skip over them. We basically pick up some life here, some damage there, more damage here. Very early on, we're still like probably splitting steel. Around here, we swap into Spectral Helix, we pick up more life, and then we get the Claw nodes and this Claw Mastery. We're basically rushing this Claw Mastery because it gives us so much sustain. Really, really, really cool. So at this point, we are probably also already using our claws, and we assume we use Spectral Helix. Other than that, after that, we can take some poison stuff here, more chaos damage here, reservation efficiencies, more life, and reservation efficiency for grace, and some evasion here, but it's mostly for the life, actually. After that, we go up here, life, damage, and more reservation efficiency. It is right out there. It is, yeah. That's what we pick up there. And then we already prepare for the trap swap. By the way, if you have this open with your mouse wheel, you can swap between multiple, gear sets, which is, I think it's really easy to see the difference, right? So this is just preparation, right? Taking trap stuff already here, even though we're not using traps yet, it's fine. Just take it already. We make a bridge here, and we are taking more trap stuff here, jewel socket, to prepare for our unique jewel, and you can take these nodes here. You don't have to take them, but if you need the strength for intelligence, feel free to do so. So this is essentially the end of our leveling tree. It should be a 60-ish tree. It is. In terms of ascendancies, you can take this one first. I would recommend to take this one first, and only take these two nodes basically in Act 10. You can do the second lab as soon as you want, but the only thing you get out of it is Ignite and Shock Immunity, which, if you want it, cool, go for it. If not, it's fine, because you're not using traps or mines. So everything else here doesn't do anything for you until you swap. So you can perfectly delay these and not worry about doing the labs, just get the trials on the way. But I highly recommend doing this first, because this blind here is so strong and helps so much with survivability that I would not skip it. If you're a maniac, take this first, second, and this one third. And then take this one at level 75, but you're probably gonna regret it, to be fair. So this is basically leveling. In terms of skills, you have the entire skill progression. This is splitting steel, getting frost bomb and flame dash, and frost blink it is. Here is your basic spectral helix stuff. Withering stab already. That's like, you get withered on people that are poisoned. This is what we do in Act 2. There's basically a Herald of Agony and Skitterbots and stuff. You might have some mana issues there. Just turn something off if it doesn't work out for you. That's fine. Act 3, get your Curse and Plague Bearer. Which is a really cool skill as well. And then, I think in Act 6, roughly, you can get Vicious Projectiles instead of faster attacks and move into your 4-link here. You can do that, and then you already basically, this is all you need to do. This is your endgame 4-link thing until acts, and then I have the trap swap in here, which is the same as this setup here. I just put it here in case while you're leveling, you want to check, what do I need to buy for later, right? That's why this is here. There's no difference between these two. So that's basically it. In terms of gear, obviously leveling gear. If you're not your first character, right? You can get leveling gear. I have no idea about leveling gear because I just never use it. But if I were to take anything, then I would take a Wanderlust and already color it green as a 4-link using the crafting bench method, basically, because it gives you a guaranteed 4-link, and you can't be frozen, and you have some movement speed guaranteed. So that's just like really good. That's what I would take. Other than that, take a Lapis Amulet at the appropriate quests and stuff, because you're probably gonna lack some intelligence, or take a strength one. One of the two you will probably lack, but you can also solve strength by just picking up heavy belts instead of leather belts, right? So it's very easy fix. Other than that, upgrade your claws. It's like you can have there's some details in it. Make sure you get high attack speed claws, like 150, 160 claws. Make sure they have gain X life per enemy hit by attacks and no percentage stuff. That's the ones you want to upgrade. Check the notes on how. Yeah, that's basically all the gear you need. Other than that, just get white gear and craft resistance on it. You only need life and resistance on your gear. Resistance definitely. Stay resistance capped starting Act 4. If you can get life on top of it, do it. And ignore anything else. It's not worth it. If you pick up pieces that look like, oh, this is gonna do a little bit more damage, and then it's just worse than even having just a white item that has correct sockets and just crafting resistance on it. It's a perfectly fine item to get through 10 acts. Don't like hinder yourself on trying to use items that look good but are actually trash for leveling. In terms of notes, I already went over this. Here you have basically a step-by-step guide. This is what to mule, and you have what to accomplish more or less per act, what you look out for per act. I'm not going to read this all again. And until you at some point end up in Act 10, I highly recommend in Act 10 that you don't kill Kitava. You do complete all your leftover skill points and regret points that you still have to do in quests. You run both labs basically, or all 3 if you have done none so far, but make sure you have 3 labs done. And before that already, it's written here by Act 8, you're gonna go, every time you level up, you're gonna go to the Rogue Harbor to collect contracts. You don't have to do this, not required for the build, but it helps so much in the league start. Just get contracts, buy them for like chance orbs, and his inventory resets every time you level up. So by the time you end up in Act 10, you're probably 60 something, you have a bunch of contracts. And as long as you don't kill Kitava, you don't get the minus resistance. So you then complete everything in the campaign except for killing Kitava, go to the Rogue Harbor and run the contracts you have, and every time you level up, you can buy a few more until you either run out of currency to do so, or you get to a high level, unless you want to do the infinite high strategy. Idea with that is, in a league start scenario, these contracts give you so much basic currency that I think it's totally worth it. And it makes having just a little bit of basic currency helps you so much swapping to traps at the very beginning without worrying too much, because you really don't want to take Spectral Helix too deep into maps, or not into maps at all. If you can avoid it, I wouldn't do that. So I'd rather go do some heisting, get a couple of chaos, buy 1 or 2 items, and be ready. That's just my recommendation. If you don't want to, I know people hate heist, and just don't. It's fine. You're gonna be okay. Then we already go into trap swap and phase 1. So if you have a look at this, in basically this trap swap thing here, you can see basically the difference here between, this is our preparation, this is the actual swap. So, we get rid of these nodes, mainly these nodes as well, and we invest them down here. So this is essentially what we do, but then we are, tree-wise, we are a trapper. If you look at the skills here, this is basically the basic setup. Interesting here in this part is we're going to use life tap. We life tap everything. We don't want to have any mana issues. Also need to swap this one first. Perfect. So we don't want to have any mana issues. So Seismic trap, as many links as you can. If you don't have 6 links, take out from the bottom here, it's ordered. You're gonna have a 4 link. If you do not have Exsanguinate, that doesn't need to be life tap, by the way, because the skill itself is already a life-based skill. If you do not have your Steer Stalkers at this point, you're gonna remove trap and mind damage and put trap support in. So it turns into traps. Shield Charge, Despair, fast attacks, also life tapped, Withering Step, and Flame Dash, live tapped. Mahal Enchant, I don't think this needs to be live tapped. It probably, I think it still works without it. Skitterbots and your other auras, basically. Yeah. You still have some mana left over, but you don't need it because everything you do is live tapped at this phase, so you don't have mana issues. You just run your auras and have a significantly happier life. In terms of items here, what you ideally want is you want an Obliteration Wand, which is super, super, super cheap. Deerstalkers should still be decently cheap, especially if you heist a bit. Maybe even find some. Not required, but it's really nice. Also, if you can't get the wand, it's also not required. You can just use anything. It's just helpful because it has a lot of damage and explosions. But if you can't, then use any weapon. It doesn't matter. If it has any damage over time on it, cool. If it has nothing on it, cool. Doesn't matter. Just until you can get this one. And ideally, get 2 of the coated shrapnel unique jewels. They are typically really cheap, and they make your entire gearing process, the entire process, so much easier if you just get 2 of them. If you can't, don't you worry. It's fine. It's all written here. I'm just going to look for the appropriate space, and that's here. 100% chance to poison would be really cool. If you can get 100% chance to poison, that's very, very good. So what else can you do to get it? You have already, if you look at our calculations here on Seismic Trap, here it is. We already have, if you look at the 3 ones here, the 4 ones, you always will have them, no matter your gear, no matter what you can get. And that amounts to 50%. If you get 2 unique jewels, you already have 100. So if you can't, what else can you do? You can, instead of skitterbots, use Herald of Agony in the setup, because it doesn't have Herald of Agony right now. But so replace them. Less damage, cool, but you get chance to poison. Ideally, alternate quality Herald of Agony gives you another 20%, so it gives you 40%. Super hard to get at this point, right? Expensive, probably not possible, but theoretical options maybe for later. There are jewels that have 5% chance to poison each. Maybe you can find some of those. You can get out of your way and get an early anoint on a shitty amulet. The anoint is super cheap. The most expensive thing it uses is a red type of thing. Like, where is it? Toxic Strikes. Is it this one here? It's like a clear, an amber, and a crimson. So this is like super, super easy and cheap to obtain if you need to. You can just use chance to poison. Right, you can just, in your setup for Seismic Trap, you can use chance to poison. If you have Deerstalkers, you can even do that for Exsanguinate, right? If you don't have Deerstalkers and need to use chance to poison, then Exsanguinate will just have less chance to poison, and that's not the end of the world. It's okay. It's a clear skill. It chains. It does. You're gonna be fine. You need to use your Seismic Trap more. It's just for a certain period of time, so don't stress out about this. It's fine. You could technically, but this is more like an SSF thing, or really, I don't know why you would do this. You could actually path down to Toxic Strikes. You might have to in SSF because you definitely don't have access to it. You cannot buy anything. So maybe you need to path down because you cannot anoint it and get it that way. And here, yeah, while Exsanguinate doesn't have like 100% chance to poison, it's not that bad. Also really important. You might hear about, yeah, just get a weapon with chance to poison that works as well. And that was true, but it is no longer true. So this is like outdated information. It does not work anymore. I think since last leak. So they patched that. So that's bait. and any like dagger that has chance to poison does no longer work. But it used to work in the past. So that's sadly gone. Other than that, for gear, obviously some more details like use armor evasion pieces. Just use good bases. Stop using really crappy bases if you can help it. It just gives you so much resistance. Other items, it's also written there, it's just life and resistance. You don't need exactly this. It's just example items to say life and resist as much as you can. You just need to cap. Like, this is super overcapped. You don't need that much, but you don't need anything else here, right? On your amulet, obviously you can use it for intelligence. Your belt you can use for strength, but other than that, just get some life and resist. Just get capped and as much life as possible. That's basically all you want to do. Get some basics of this. So this is basically trap swap. Then you're using traps. Same here also with details. Like, you could get, if you somehow get your hand on a curse on hit ring, cool. Like, don't go out of your way. Don't spend a lot of money. You have other things to spend on. It's not necessary, but it's kind of nice. Maybe you drop one. Maybe you delve and find one. Somehow with harvest. I don't know. If you get one for really cheap, cool. If not, fine. Same with a focus helmet. The same. Here it is. This line here, this increased duration of elements while you inflict focus, can also appear on other helmets from Betrayal, right? So if you randomly get one, might be worth using it, right? But don't go out of your way to get it. Absolutely not. So here's also a bit written about like what you think you can do with this. You can definitely do white maps. You can do yellow maps with ease. You can start doing your Atlas stuff. All these kind of things here, right? So in terms of phase 1 itself, in terms of items, nothing changes, right? Maybe you actually want a Curse of Hit Ring at this point, like actively look for any of them, right? But other than that, 2 uniques with Deer Strike is not being required, and just life and resist. That's basically all you want. So gem-wise, nothing changes. You just get more levels on your gems. That's perfectly fine. Tree-wise, stuff does change for essentially, I call it phase 1, also tree-wise here. Between these two, we just fill out a bunch of resistance here, like still on the same gear set. We already have positive chaos resistance. We get this additional 12% all res here. That's like really good. What else do we get? Yeah, some more life here, some skill effect duration here. You get this node. This is a very flexible node. You don't have to take this node. You can put it somewhere else if you needed to. And then we're gonna move into phase 1 tree-wise. So main difference if I pop these back and forth here. So this stuff is gonna be removed and the Grace Mastery is gonna be moved here, right? So so this connection is already there anyway. We're gonna take these spell suppression nodes and we're gonna take these spell suppression nodes. And if you look here to the left, like before, I have 38% spell suppression, and after I take this, I have 100% life-based. Just a little bit. What else do we get actually? We get a little bit of life. Okay, that's actually not that much, but we make some start towards the life thing. But most of the thing is we're 100% spell suppression capped. Keep in mind, there's like a tiny node hidden here. If you need just a bit more, like without this one, we're missing 1%. There's like here like flexible nodes that help you fix like this tiny bit of the spell suppression if you actually need it. You probably want this node to fix it to 100% completely from tree. There's 0 right now. Let's see if we have all the phase 1. We do calculations. If you go for spell suppression on the top right here, there's 0 from gear. It's all tree and based how much dex we have, but we don't have any dex on gear either. So everybody can get this, and all of a sudden you are positive chaos res, you're elemental capped, obviously. You have somewhat decent amount of life. The percent from tree is not that high, but we are soft core. It's going to be fine. You're spell suppression capped. You shouldn't have too much issues with your attributes. Actually, I wanted to talk about the attributes real quick, because at this stage, in terms of requirements, there are dex requirements, but they don't matter because you get so much dex naturally. So no problem. You have int requirements. 2 of them actually, interesting one. The wand and flame dash. The wand being higher. You cannot lower the wand one. So you need 179 dex. It's kind of a hard requirement. The next thing that might throw you off in terms of attributes is strength. And that's mainly because life tap is somewhat high, but also if you look at the 2 really big offenders, it's shield charge and determination. If you're struggling this early on, assuming you have really high gems already, consider not leveling shield charge and determination that high for some time. That can really solve you a bunch of headaches. It's not like these are the big gems that need to be super leveled quickly, especially not shield charge. So don't get yourself into too much attribute trouble by leveling your gems too high. Just keep that a bit in mind, that this is the issue and not something you really need. And strength will be solved later entirely on tree. You don't need any strength from gear later on, but int. So yeah, that's basically here. Phase 1 gets spell suppression. In terms of skills, as I said, nothing changes. Items, nothing changes except for please get the ring. Do yourself a favor, get the ring and don't cast Despair yourself. So tree-wise, next, after spell suppression, we get some more resistance and fix our stats. So this stuff moves away. And what we get extra, I'll just show you again. is this stuff down here, right? You get an extra jewel socket, which is kind of cool. Maybe you already have like any jewel that has corrupted blood cannot be inflicted, or anything useful. Maybe some resistance you need, some stats you need. I don't know. It's like a jewel socket. Use it for something. And then on the way here, we get strength nodes. We just get 30 strength, which is already the same as this, and we get it anywhere by traveling, so it's already better for strength. You get the max res here, and you get a second one of these. So you can do corrupted blood here, and all res and chaos res here. So you already have these two things basically solved forever. Obviously, if you get corrupted blood here, you can just save on this node and do something else. So small change here, but it removes the stuff. Yeah, makes that easier. So next thing is life percentage fix. I called it. It's basically we go down here. This also gets us close, by the way, to an intelligence node again in case we need. And here we get more resistance. We get more life. So this is early in the game, in the league, and we're already like at level 96, which you won't be, and that is okay. But I don't know how long it will take different kind of people to get somewhere. So this is just an idea. You don't need to complete the entire tree here. As you can see, it's just life and stuff. If you can move on with other phases in terms of like items, that's what it's mostly about. And in the nodes is what I actually expect you to be here, right? So level 90 is perfectly fine there. So that's basically the end of phase 1. And this here, again, I wrote down what I expect you to do. It's like low red tier, probably maybe 14s. If you like dying, then maybe or something, then maybe you're already running 16. You probably could, but yeah, it feels stressful. You can do essences, expedition, harvest, stuff like that. Do your betrayal. You're completing your atlas anyway. You're still very low level early in the league. Phase 2. That's prep and then actually swapping in Eldritch battery stuff, and after that getting spell suppression on the gear. So this gets a bit more juicy then. We start on phase 2, or basically it's just one thing. Here we start where we are basically. So this is basically, yeah, this is just a swap of. So we start with this tree. We cannot yet swap our skills yet, and we cannot yet swap our items, but we can have a look at it. So for phase 2, we want to swap into, as I talked about it earlier, into this helmet and into this shield, right? And ideally maybe also our ring. So what that means is that these 3 slots previously, right here, 1, 2, and 3, they have resistance on it, possibly. They possibly have attributes on it. So the first thing we need to do, we need to have a look. What do the unique items provide? And they don't provide any resistance, and they don't provide any attributes. At least I don't think they do. They don't, right? No, they don't. Okay, chaos resistance, elemental resistance, I mean. So, fine. So, be prepared that if you unequip the rares you have in these slots, that you are still resistance capped and you still have all the attributes you need as soon as you do that, right? And that's super, 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 super important. So, that's what you do first, essentially. That's like this part here, right? You can also do your flask, by the way. You can get your oh, here it is, yeah. Oh, here it is, yeah. Prepare your rares. So yeah, you can actually swap into that. So in terms of preparing the rares, first one is like the chest piece. I don't really want to touch. I kind of expect you at this point to have like a corrupted rare with some life and some resist, corrupted 6-link, something like that. I don't want you to get like change a 6-link. It's always expensive to do that. So ideally you leave the chest piece alone. Just have a 6-link, have life, have resist. Fine. Gloves. This is a really good, in my opinion at least, a really good opportunity to already get towards your endgame gloves, I think. You could at least. You probably should already here. You should already look at something like this. If you don't need to, if you can't, just get live and resists on it. Make sure you're still capped. Cool. Same here. Make sure you're still capped. That's basically what you can do. Just make sure you're capped without the unique items. Let's leave it at that because that is simpler. Make sure you are. So as soon as you are still capped, you don't need to have these specific ones, but have anything that caps you while you have the uniques. Get the uniques and equip the uniques. As soon as you have done that, you can swap everything else as well. You can swap your spells, which means essentially that you remove life tap. So you get towards 6 link like this. Same here, there was no life tap here. You might want to set up your busting setup in case you want to do a big boss. Warlord Shell, same. Defiance banner, same movement things. We have one more aura thing because we have space now, because we are using this helmet now. That's basically the swap there. And we have then also basically space to use Malevolence with Divine Blessing, which is really cool. And we hopefully have a curse on hit ring. So then basically this is the swap of your, as soon as you swap the items, you can swap your skills. Which means a bunch of recoloring probably. And then your tree in this case looks still the same. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Next step. We start on tree here. Next step, I would like you to, so you have the unique items equipped. Work on moving your suppression from the tree to your gear. So if you see the difference here, it is mainly removing this. Almost made it through one take without coughing. So, difference. These nodes here. We want to get rid of them. If you look at here, it says here 5 points. We want these 5 points back. 6 points actually. We can regret this one as well. You want these 6 points back by moving spell suppression to your gear. So if you look at the difference here, at the same time you probably also want to get rid of this chaos rest stuff here. Where do we put it? If we zoom out a bit and go over here, yeah, this should be quite visible here. Here the difference is down here, right? So ideally you also regret one of these points here. You get corrupted blood somewhere else if you can, but you get into these life nodes if you have the levels. This puts us at a comfy 160% life from tree and really boosts our total life pool. So that's kind of the idea. So how do we accomplish this? On the items. As said, we don't really want to touch the chest because touching chest, super expensive. So let's not get suppression there for now. Really good time to get your absolute endgame gloves. Like these are for phase 2, 3, and even 4. These are really, really good. So that means you need a high spell suppression roll, like 11, 12-ish. You need life and you need good double resist, right? High life, like tier 2 life, tier 2 resistance, 2 of them. That's gloves you want to get at this point, and you want to get this Eater of Worlds implicit with like, it's like the second highest, I think. It's not a really low thing. It's like one above it, I believe, with like 7% or something. Really good point. You can already really farm really high content, so it should not be no issue getting gloves like this. On boots, these are intermediate boots, so don't put too much money into those. Get some kind of a life roll, get like a 10%-ish, right? Spell suppression thing, like 9 or something. Do the math with what you already have. Get a roll like this, and craft your increased movement speed and cannot be chilled. Really good opportunity. Should be easy enough to obtain, especially since it doesn't have movement speed. So people don't really want this stuff. Intermediate boots. On terms of amulet, still kind of the same. Fixes your int, have your allocation on it, you know, your anointment on it, some resist if you can, still the same. Any kind curse on hit ring. And in terms of belt, make sure you get a bunch of resists on your belt. You probably already have that. But in terms of spell suppression, these 2. Really good one, intermediate one. And also on the tree, it's really hidden. I know it's difficult to see between the changes, but yeah, there's like a single node here. So if you need to somehow fix, you know, just a little bit of spell suppression, there are even more of these 4% nodes here. Really cool. If you need to fix a little bit of elemental resistance, there are like 18% nodes here. Maybe this can also help you out. somehow get this done. And depending what level you already have, obviously, you might not go this deep into here or regret some of this stuff just to make sure you get your spell suppression fixed. There's like flexible nodes here. Again, this node is also very flexible. You don't need this node. Make sure you somehow with like these node packs here, or maybe even regretting an entire thing here or whatever, make sure you remove the nodes from over here and get rid of these as well, to move that stuff. That basically marks end of phase 2. You have better gear, your tree has more life, really cool, and then you're ready for phase 3, which is basically the end. That's the last real phase. As said before, phase 4, if you have a look at this, like skills don't change. It's still the same ones, right? You can obviously see, I already have a look at phase 4. It's just awakened gems and maybe some higher level here. Quality, you can get quality early. You can get quality here already if you want to, and maybe get a level 21 gem. Yeah, that really helps actually. All still the same. Items will change here, and tree on phase 3 or 4. It's just some endgame fixes. If you have a look at the full tree, you can see the difference again for you. I hope that's somewhat visible on YouTube. Well, so there's almost no difference here, right? If you can see, we fix or perfect our suppression, so we don't need these nodes anymore. We get our anointment and everything, so we might need to we might able to replace one of the unique jewels, which is cool, for like a better one with like more life. And if you have the points left over, you can take these nodes here. So that's like tiny adjustments on the tree, not really important. What is perfecting your gear if you feel like. This will be last one. So first of all, gloves, still the same. We did it in the last phase, hopefully already. Boots, we get really nice boots, right? They're also not crazy expensive. They are very doable in an endgame scenario, right? High life, like tier 2, tier 1 life, and tier 2, tier 1 resistance, 3 of them, and craft your movement speed cannot be chilled on it. If you get another attribute like armor and evasion, that's cool. Like anything extra is always good. And make sure you get your Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds implicits. They are nice implicits for this stuff. These would be endgame boots, basically. That's actually the ones I had this league. Amulet, for example, in this case has some damage over time multiplier. I don't know if it did have that before. No, it did not. Yeah, maybe you can get an amulet that has your still your life and int and your anointment, but get some damage over time multiplier on it. There's multiple ones that help you with dot builds on your amulet that are really cool. Same with your ring, right? Get like life next to your curse enemies with the spare, right? And maybe do the minimum endurance charge craft, which is also available for amulets, by the way. So just like kind of perfect your items. And as you can see, this item doesn't have much more. So this entire setup is planned to be easy on amulets and rings, relatively easy. So you only need to get one expensive thing on them, right? If you get more, that's cool, but you don't have to. If you get some resistance alongside this, it just relieves pressure off of other items. You can do that, but ideally it's cheap enough to get on other items like your boots and your gloves and also your belt, that it leaves room to go for damage or anything on your ring and your amulet. So belt also, it's a triple resist and life belt. Yeah, it doesn't need to be a leather belt with even more life. It can be any other belt. Just make sure you get a nice item that helps you fix your resistances. Same with like getting rid of this second unique jewel, right? Just gives you more life and opportunity for damage, basically. And as you can see here in this setup, this would already be resistance overcapped entirely. So it helps with like curse of like the elemental weakness curse, right? So you can be cursed and you still resistance capped. You don't rely on a flask to be up with reduced curse effect. So you just have this permanency and you're immune to the curse essentially. You could consider at this point already to swap off Alira, you know? If you really have that much resistance, you could do that and get 2 more skill points. So that's kind of up to you. You're kind of free of that. So if you get all of these items, that's fine. Important here is for you, so you're able to basically you are able to get boots without spell suppression, and you're able to remove these 2 nodes here. You would need a chest with a high spell suppression node. So you could go with something that's just live spell suppression and resist, maybe, and maybe not even have the chaos resistance. You don't need to be chaos resistance capped, but it's nice to be. Yeah, if you're plus 50 instead of plus 70, 76, you're still fine. That's okay. But that's a really good opportunity to go and craft this chest, basically. You're already high level, probably, if you're struggling leveling up because you're dying, which I don't think you will. Even before this point, I think you will be fine. You can level up safely. If you do, and you would want a few levels, you're easily able to farm enough currency. And by the time you get there in the league, the 5-way carries should be available to just get you from level 90 to 94 for a couple of divines that it is right now, unless it's Exalt next league again, but probably divines. You give them a couple of divines. It gets even cheaper if you learn how to reset. You can Google that stuff. And then you just get 4 levels for almost nothing, essentially. Gives you 4 points. Maybe you are 94 and you want to get to 96, get 2 more points. Go ahead, get a carry, or just map and don't die, which shouldn't be a problem. I leveled up naturally, I believe, from 94 to 97 on this build, just by normal mapping. I died that rarely, essentially, that I was able to just slowly level up. So, I said, opportunity here. Go ahead, craft your own chest. I have a video for that. Hopefully don't forget to link it, but there's a crafting video on this chest. It's expensive, sure, but that's like the super endgame chase item for me and was really fun to do and something you can work towards. And as soon as you have it, then you have spell suppression on it, meaning you can change your boots. That basically allows you to do that. But that's between phase 3 and 4, to be fair, or between phase 2 and 3, the difference really is optimization, making space, optimizing some items, moving some stuff on your tree to get a bit more life. There's no significant difference anymore, but that's kind of ends the how far the guide goes. As said, this is basically in my opinion, completely capable. Fully capable endgame items where you beat the feared and all this kind of stuff. But even if you don't craft a chest that is that expensive, you should absolutely be able to do this. In terms of skills, said before, phase 4 is really just if you want to splurge on the build. If you feel like it, get awakened gems, sure. Fix up all your quality on all the other ones. You can do it a bit early as well. Get some alternate quality. It's a bit out of scope for the guide. It kind of ends, in my opinion, more towards phase 3, which is absolutely enough. Also in terms of items, all of them, there's no item change anymore for phase 3, but feel free to min-max on it. I didn't feel the need. I don't know, get clusters and probably make the build worse than it was before. Yeah, that's essentially it. Notes are in here for every single step. I hope my rambling was somewhat useful for this entire thing. I hope it was. And yeah, check the description towards 3.20 if you actually care about playing it. Hopefully we'll be able to provide some timely details on upcoming development notes, manifestos, and things like that, and then the actual patch notes. Before that, it's speculation anyway if something will work or not. I'm very confident this build will still work, even though I already heard there might be gutting unique jewels, but we don't have confirmation really yet on if it's affecting this one. There are ways to work around that, and they've nerfed this seismic trap things so much in the last leaks that maybe you have a chance for it to not be nerfed this time. And even if then we will find a workaround. We did this now 3 times, 4 times, I think 3 times in a row, 3 leaks in a row or something. It was nerfed, and every time there was a workaround, and it was not actually that bad, and I believe the build should be fine no matter what happens. If you actually made it this far, thank you for watching, I guess, and I really hope that you have an amazing league start. And if you choose using this going forward, and I would be really happy if you leave me a comment on how it went. If you have any questions, please put them here. You can also contact me in-game or on Discord or something, but I think it's a really good place to put them into the comments, because then it's easier for other people to see that might have the same question, and then it's answered in the most appropriate place. You find everything in the description, including this thing here, which will obviously be updated over time. So before you start, maybe download it again, have a look, read the notes, hit me up if you need anything. And yeah, I hope you have the best time. See you.